This podcast was developed by the Maryland Restorative Approaches Collaborative, a partnership between the Maryland State Department of Education and the Center for Dispute Resolution at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law to support restorative approaches across Maryland. This podcast series, Restorative Approaches, Our Stories, Our Voices, is hosted by Robin McNair. All of the podcasts are available on C-Drum's Restorative Approaches Resources website.
In this episode, Robin interviews Dana Coles, director of the Prince George's County Community Conferencing Program. They talk about her efforts to expand the use of restorative approaches in Maryland, especially for those affected by personal and systemic trauma.
Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of C-Drum's Restorative Approaches, Our Stories, Our Voices. I am your host, Robin McNair, and it gives me great pleasure, did I say great pleasure, to have our first guest, Miss Dana Coles, joining us today. I am so excited. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Coles. Dana Coles has been a director for the Prince George's County Community Conferencing Program, which we call PGCC-CP, since the summer of 2015. Her skills in management, organization, and marketing, as well as her training as a lawyer and mediator, all accumulate in her drive to provide high-quality facilitations to restorative processes. Dana uses her creative nature, and let me tell you, she is very creative, to develop fun and interactive trainings to enhance the facilitation skills of PGCC-CP's volunteers. She is committed to expanding the web of restorative processes in Maryland and building a network of restorative practitioners throughout the state and beyond. Ms. Coles has an undergraduate degree in sociology from Bowie State University. Let's go Bulldogs. A law degree from Roger Williams University School of Law, and is a loyal member of the Maryland Bar. And without further ado, I'm going to be quiet and allow us to hear Ms. Dana Coles, her journey, her voice. So, Ms. Coles, thank you so much for agreeing to be on a part of our mini podcast at C-Drum.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for asking me. I appreciate it, Robin.
Yes, it is my pleasure and an honor to have you here. So could you just share a little bit about your restorative journey from being a lawyer to becoming the director of the PGCC-CP for the state of Maryland?
Absolutely. It's an interesting journey, but I'm gonna keep it short because we don't have a lot of time. But at the time that I had started doing this, or right before I had started doing this work, or even knew anything about restorative justice, before I knew anything about community conferencing, I was working at Nature Magazine as an office manager and trying to start up my own law practice, which was not something that I was too happy about doing, but I was like, gosh, I got to use this law degree. I really need to put it to use. But I wasn't feeling it at all. It just didn't sit well with me. And during 2011, I had taken a mediation course at the Prince George's Community College. And I kept in touch with my mediation instructor, Thomas McLeod. And he actually recommended me to the people who were forming the community conferencing program in Prince George's County. And they reached out to me and was like, Tom gave us your name. Are you interested in possibly training to learn how to do community conferencing? And they told me about it, told me about that specific process of community conferencing. And I was like, sure, what do I need to do? And they're like, well, we'll pay for your training if you agree to stay on as a volunteer for a year. So I was like, oh, okay. not a problem. So I did the training, and right away started getting assigned as a facilitator to cases. And all of our cases at that time were coming from the Department of Juvenile Services. And I guess I was good at it, because when a position opened up for a director, even before then, they had noticed that, I liked the process, I did a good job with it, and they asked me to be a mentor to a couple of people who were newer than I was as a facilitator. So I was like, sure, I'll work with them as well. And one of those people is Roseanne. She was my mentee when I first came on. And within 11 months, I got trained in 2014. By 2015, I was one of the co-directors of the program. And we had two directors for a couple of years until the co-director at the time that I became a full director left. And I've been the director of the program ever since. So that was kind of my journey from, legal work. And I dropped the legal work immediately because I really liked doing this. I really loved it. It sat well with, who I felt like I needed to become. I really enjoyed the process. I learned a lot. And it was very easy for me to say, I don't need to be a practicing attorney. And I, even at that time, had filled out paperwork to go in active as an attorney. So I was like, I really was committed to being a practitioner. And at that time, just a community conferencing practitioner. But yeah, that's how my journey got started.
Wow, that is so exciting. It sounds like restorative justice found you.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
And I know you mentioned that many of your first cases were with, young people, juvenile. So I want to ask you, has being involved in this work, specifically working with young people, have that shifted your perspective on young people or people in general, especially when they have, been engaged in some type of wrongdoing? And if so, share with us how.
Absolutely. The answer is absolutely 100% yes. I now have a better understanding in its totality of what systemic oppression does to people and how it informs how people move about society and how trauma informs people's decisions. And especially when it comes to young people, in most cases, when they make a decision or they do something wrong, they're acting out of trauma. And that trauma has not been processed, it has not been dealt with because it's cyclical. A lot of times they're coming from situations where their parents, grandparents have gone through trauma that has not been addressed. And now they're kind of being born into it. And our response in this society is always punishment. Somebody does something wrong, we deal with it through punishment. And punishment doesn't address needs. If we're not willing to understand why people make the decisions that they make, we can't ever have the society that we want. So, it definitely made me, this restorative journey, sitting down and having conversations with people, especially young people, but even when you're having those discussions with young people, their parents and supporters are part of that conversation, and you hear their stories as well, you realize that there are other needs that need to be addressed. And traumas will always inform how people choose to do something. And we all know the adage, hurt people hurt people. So that shows up quite a bit. And especially if you're young and that's all you know, people hurt you, you hurt people. So this process, or restorative justice, these processes that we do, being able to dialogue with people, being able to hear their stories in a way that, we can show them we're not judging them. we're not trying to make a situation worse. We actually want to get to the root of the cause so that we can start helping them with their issues. Where when they do something wrong, we're calling them in, not calling them out. And this is in no way, shape, or form saying that they don't have to take responsibility for what they've done. That's a part of this process. They do have to take responsibility for what they've done, and want to be held accountable for it. But the goal of this is not punishment. It really is trying to help a situation where whatever the harm is can get healed. It doesn't happen again. The person who does the healing, the person who does the harm doesn't continue to harm that person or other people, and that they can start their own path to healing as well. So, it started with young people, and I definitely started seeing young people in a different light when I started doing this work. And I'm definitely more patient with them than I used to be. And I try to, the way that I facilitate, I definitely try to give them more voice, because so often they're not allowed to say the things that they need to say. They're not allowed sometimes. Adults don't want to hear it. They just, want them to take their licks and keep it going. And, as a facilitator, I want them to be heard, because when they're heard, they'll actually take accountability, take responsibility, try to make the situation right. And then people will start to see them in a different light. That need for punishment tends to fall away when folks are willing to take responsibility and do the right thing and help with the healing. So the answer to your question, that's a long answer, but the answer to your question is yes, it definitely has shifted how I look at young people and people in general.
Oh, wow. That explanation was amazing to me. And just listening to you talk about giving children voice, and how going from a lawyer, where we know lawyers, really are the ones that stand up and speak for, people who are in trouble. But now in your role, you're allowing the young people to have the voice. And that is so important. And as you were talking, Dana, all I could think about was, wow, we need more restorative practitioners than we do lawyers for children.
Yes, absolutely. Because, as lawyers, and I'm not against telling people, shut up, don't say anything. That's ingrained in me. But when people want to make a situation right, we need to let them do that. And sometimes lawyering gets in the way of that. And the system that we have gets in the way of people trying to make a situation right, trying to help with the healing for someone else. We get in the way of that because we have an adversarial system. So we figure, it should be one person winning, not all parties winning. And it's like, no. The restorative way is everybody should be able to win. We all should be able to come out better on the other side of it. Not one person gets all. So yeah.
Right. I think I heard someone say, we all want to eat and we all can eat. Made that comment about it. I was speaking with someone earlier today. They were talking about their work with you, as you go into the schools to help families with young people who may have attendance issues or may have to be reintegrated back into the school environment. And they were just singing your praises about how your services, specifically your facilitation, has really helped those young people. So I am grateful to have you as a partner with Prince George's County Public Schools. And I just wanted to put that plug in there.
I appreciate that, I do.
So I wanted to ask you that oftentimes when we talk about restorative processes, we tend to talk about how we are using it to help other people heal and how we're using it to help repair relationships between other people. Dana, has restorative justice or this restorative work that you do impacted your life, your personal life at all? And if so, share that with us.
It has. There's no way that you can do this work and really be about it, as we say, and it not change just how you see things, how you view things completely. And the first change is my own self-awareness, how I navigate and how I talk to people and how I come at situations, how I used to call people out all the time. And now, I'm not saying I don't always call people out, but I try to sit and think about why someone makes a decision the way that they make it. Why they navigate situations the way that they do. So I have to be first self-reflective, and this work has really afforded me the opportunity to really think about my own way of being and my own, judgments that I would have on people and situations before knowing what the restorative worldview looked like, through a restorative lens. So yeah, I'm less judgmental of the people close to me because, again, going back to traumas, I realized everybody has their own story, and many of those stories include some type of trauma, and a lot of those traumas have never been dealt with. So how I navigate my relationships with people may be a little bit more tender than they were before. I'm not, I can be rough around the edges when it comes to certain people, and dealing with family. I probably am much more harsher dealing with family than I am with strangers. I think most of us are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has afforded me the ability to be less judgmental and a little bit more gentle with them, because now I can see things that I didn't see before, or I can analyze their stories from a different perspective and see this has impacted them in a way that they still carry that hurt, that they still carry that harm that someone else did to them. And it impacts how they deal with people moving forward. Yeah. And, being able to analyze those people's stories, I'm able to be a little bit more compassionate about, how I approach them, how I talk to them, how I interact with them, how when they say certain things, it's like, okay, I get where this is coming from now. Whereas before, I couldn't really see it. I didn't really give them credit for that. And now I can be a little bit more open to their lived experience and the likelihood that they have some unprocessed issues and traumatic events that are always with them that make them respond how they do. So I have to change how I respond to them.
Oh, okay. So as you were talking, all I could think about was transformative.
Mm-hmm.
This work is transformative.
It really is.
Yeah, not just for the people involved, but even for the people who are doing the facilitation and who's involved in this work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your story. And that is our time. But before we leave, Dana, I just want to ask you, if you wanted to leave something with the people today about restorative justice in Maryland, what is the one thing you would like to leave with us today?
That it's here for you. Like it's here in Maryland. There are so many practitioners of it in Maryland. There are many counties that are providing this work at no charge for their community members. And if you want to know who those communities are, go to MACRO, MACRO. They're the Mediation and Conflict Resolution Office. That's what MACRO stands for. And they're funded by the Maryland Judiciary, their Office of the Maryland Judiciary. So use us and other types of conflict resolution, because you don't need to take things into court, and you can handle things as community members and keep our communities intact and flourishing.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we're going to make sure that we put that information on our CDRUM website, so people will have your contact information. So Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me and Ms. Dana Coles on CDRUM, Restorative Approaches, our stories, our voices. And until next time, be well.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. This podcast, copyright 2023, by the Center for Dispute Resolution at the University of Maryland Carey School of Law, is licensed for sharing under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. For more information about the Creative Commons license, please visit creativecommons.org. All of the podcasts in this series are available on our Restorative Approaches Resources website, cdrum.org.